All right, let's jump right into it. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for attending episode 19 in Let's Talk Recruiting, where we get a bunch of recruiting practitioners from across the country to get together to have good conversation around a variety of topics. Today we have mostly, I think we touched on almost all areas of the country, East Coast, Mountain, and Pacific, with Chris Soprano coming in from Denver. And we have Samantha, tell me if I'm getting this right, Shobe?
Show.
Shobe, I'm sorry. I'm getting better, but I'm still messing up people's names. I apologize.
No worries.
All right. And Jonathan Graber of Atlanta and Sheridan King out of the DC area. So today's topic is going to be, I think, at the heart of everybody's daily day from minute to minute, and that is 5 tips on managing your inbox. If we have time today, we'll talk through some of the ideas that the attendees put in when you registered. But with that said, as we're going through this to all attendees, you are on listen mode only. So if you have any comments or questions that you want to get into the conversation, please throw them into the chat area. We'll be keeping an eye on that. And with that said, Chris, we're going to sort of jump directly over to you to see what you're bringing to the table, so to speak.
Absolutely. And good morning, everyone. For me, my inbox is kind of my to-do list or my action items. So I definitely have a tendency to leave items in my inbox until they've at least been settled or have that next step on them. And then I move them into a folder. And those folders I arrange by topic. So for me, I work for a hospital system. There are 4 different hospitals that I work for, so I divide things up by manager and by hospital so that I can find them quickly. But definitely, however that works best for you, I would suggest doing that. And for me also, things like, when you're dealing with benefits for certain things, when you're dealing with certain topics that are coming in for your department specifically, I always divide those out too so that I can refer back to them, especially anything that you need to, I don't have any other term for it, but CYA. That is something that I use those folders for as well. When I have a manager saying, yes, let's go over the top of the rate, I definitely want to make sure that we've got that saved so that we can, refer back to that if necessary. But my inbox, until I've got something settled, I always make sure that it stays there, but that it stays clean. Because if there's over like 20 emails in my inbox, I start to get a little nervous about it. And start having to go through those items and clean it out because for me, that is way too much to have on a to-do list, and it needs to get done. So yeah, that is basically how I kind of structure my inbox. And like someone said in the notes, I try not to check it every day, all day long, because I can definitely be that person that's like, oh, shiny, while I'm working on something else and get completely distracted by my emails as they come in. So it does definitely help to time block that and go in and then try to process through those in a specified set of time to handle it. So that's my general way I manage my inbox.
Chris, quick question on your structure then, and real quick, and this
Sure.
for the panel. Is everybody on Outlook who's on the panel?
I actually use Google Mail.
Oh, so when you say folders, are they labels or folders? Are they interchangeable?
They're actually folders that it's on the left-hand side, just like Outlook.
Oh, okay. I haven't used Gmail in a while for work. I thought they were labels and I always had to kind of transform them. So your structure in your folders, then you have hospital and then your managers within each hospital?
Yep.
Do you, as the emails come in, are you kind of triaging them into their specific folder, or are you utilizing rules of any sort?
I really don't use rules too much because if it's not in that inbox, I have a tendency to not see it right away. So I make sure that it comes into my inbox so that I can at least see it. And if it's something I don't need to deal with right away, or if it's the end of a conversation, just move it into that folder real quick. I mean, it takes just a couple seconds. So I really don't apply the rules just so I don't miss anything.
Interesting. I mean, we saw in the comments from the attendees, a lot of people are recommending folders and stuff like that. I think everybody has their version. I like to use the rec number in the folder name, then it goes to that. Do you just sort of know every rec, which managers it is, and have that good grasp of your hiring teams?
With my ATS, it's really simple to keep track of that. So since I'm just hiring, especially right now, I'm only hiring ICU nurses.
Okay.
I usually hire ICU, cardiac cath lab, ER, ambulance, and some varied departments based on those needs. So I don't have a huge amount of departments, but yeah, I generally know which hospital it's for and which it goes to. When I used to work in staffing, I definitely did it by rec number because every rec was a different manager, was a different place, was a different everything.
And now, do you use like an evergreen pipeline, or are you still working off one rec per hire? Or how are you doing that? Just out of curiosity.
We work on a pipeline, and that's where the folders that I have for those departments and those managers is where I would put, say, an ICU nurse for Lutheran Hospitals, one of the hospitals I have out here that I work with. If I've got a candidate that really wants that hospital, really wants day shift, I have a folder under that that's like pipelined candidates, and I've got that labeled out so that I can keep those candidates and keep them informed of what's going on, of positions as we go, because I don't want to be reinventing the wheel every time I have an ICU opening.
And how do you know if something needs to be done in one of the folders? Like, let's say you responded to an email, it's in that folder for Dr. Welby.
Right.
How do you know, oh, I need to follow up?
Right. As if it's in the folder, I've already followed up. So I don't
Gotcha.
even move it into the folder until it is done. I keep it active in my inbox so I know that there's still action items to be taken on those.
Got it. And I think using the name Dr. Welby I put an age on myself if anybody remembers that. So the rest of the panelists around folder structure like that, are you kind of following that same concept, or any type of differing folder structure? Jonathan?
I have a no frills folder method, which is basically there's a trash bin and there's an archived, and everything goes in archived if you want to keep it. But I can go more into that when I talk about my full structure, but it's very similar to Chris, but minus the folder structure.
Got it.
If you want me to go into it now, I'm happy to go into that now, but I think I'll just wait.
Yeah, just wait. Sheridan, Samantha, anything to that?
Sure. So I'm on an Outlook platform now, but for a long time I was on a Google platform, and so I did have a similar way of organization. So I had labels or folders where I would move things into the labels or folders. I did use a task list, so a lot of times I would, if it was something that needed to be followed up on, I would create a task or follow up, because sometimes if I don't see something or it doesn't show up as a reminder, it would tend to get lost in my inbox. So I had a task list. If it needed to be saved, it moved into my folders. Our ATS that I used when I was in staffing was integrated with Google. So with our Gmail, so it was actually pretty nice. I used our ATS a lot from a tracking perspective, so I could have my tasks back and forth in the ATS and in Gmail. So I would agree. I mean, I had a lot of folders and a lot of follow-up items that were kept in Gmail. Now that I'm in an Outlook platform, at first I had a really difficult time. I will not lie. I was like, ugh, I miss my Gmail. But now I've sort of switched it up, and I know I'll talk about that when it's my turn about what I do now. I'm still working on it, but I will say the one thing that I did was attend a lot of calls like this and talk with my colleagues. I'm always trying to tweak and make it a little bit better. I just have learned over the years, my way is not always the best way. You have to make learn what you can use and figure out the best way for you. So that's what I always love to hear everybody else's ideas.
Samantha?
And I'm with Chris. I am huge on my folders. The only other thing I think I do on top, if it's in my regular inbox, I use the category function a lot, where you can add a different color coding label to the email and include in anything left in my inbox, put a color code to it. So at the end of the day, I know everything orange is a high priority, something I need done by the end of the day. Or if it's, black or blue or whatever, I have more time or a specific need there that I'm maybe waiting on someone else for feedback from. And I can just search by the category, make sure at the end of the day, all my oranges are definitely cleared out. And if anything, is something that was more like check in a week, I can kind of pull up that as well and just have a little bit more structure to pull through that kind of to-do list I already have there, and just make sure that the really high priority items are actioned as soon as possible.
Yeah, to that point, one of the other things that I did, I had a lot of filters set up. So over time, I set up filters to send items to particular folders or categories. And then I had on my task list, like if things were, if we had VMSs that we worked with, so it would be, review VMS requisitions, or so I would set my task list to go review those folders. But I did a lot of filtering too, just to get stuff out of my inbox.
Yeah, I've seen somewhere, the weirdest inbox I've ever seen was the person who, they kept thousands of emails in their inbox, and the way they knew if they had to do anything on it was whether it was read or unread. That's how they managed to list. And this was in Gmail, where you could just next page. I'm like, if it works for you, but the whole art of communication around email management is just a fascination for me. It's like, I don't know, you find what works for you. I don't know if there's anything near perfection or hitting that wish list if we could all recreate email. I know Slack's trying to take a shot at it, but we'll see where that goes. All right. Excellent. Chris, thanks for that.
Absolutely.
Samantha, let's jump over to you and your item.
Awesome. Well, hey everyone, just to kind of quickly introduce myself, I'm Samantha, and I actually work for a recruitment agency. So I work with a number of different clients. I specialize within the Salesforce space, kind of in the contract world. So everything's pretty quick on my side of things. So one of the two things that I'm huge on are my email signatures. I think I have about 15 different signature templates to help me move through my action items that are in my inbox as quick as possible, reply to the things that I get questions on all the time, or send a lot of maybe the longer emails, onboarding documents, follow-up emails. These things help me move through my inbox quicker so that I can keep my to-do list shorter. And then just labeling all of my signatures so I know what I'm working, which one I'm clicking into, and then hopefully just I'm able to edit just kind of the editable items for each email. And I've found that helps keep my inbox clear if I'm able to move through things really quickly, as well as I think, Sean, you mentioned earlier, I have a lot of rules set up in my inbox. So if there is this particular client I work with a lot, or things from our back office come through in a regular, something that happens more than once in a while, I have a rule set up for it basically. So it'll move it to the right folder once I've done the action item needed off of that. And I'm able to really kind of keep control on where all of those things end up and make sure all the important information from there is kept in exactly where I know how to find it. Sort of a move on that.
Samantha, quick question for you on your rules. So I love to write rules based upon subject line. So if I'm doing a lot more repetitive emails where I'm reaching out to quite a few people for a specific reason, right? And that reason could be a job, it could be a rec number, it could be anything. So I kind of write rules around the subject line. So like when I'm reaching out to panel members, whenever they come back, I know this is an email from a panel member, flags it, turns it to red. Are you writing rules like that, or how are you writing your rules?
I think most of my rules are actually based off of sender or who it's sent to, because in our organization, we have a lot of grouped emails based off the team that you work on, your technology specialty, location, because we're kind of broken up based on region. So depending on who that email was sent to or who it's from, I have different rules to make sure the really important stuff that's to my very specific group gets through to me, where maybe stuff that's a lot larger, wins chains, or bigger announcements, and I think we mentioned this as well, is something I check once a day, maybe twice a day, since it's just not going to be as urgently I need to action that item. And I'm able to kind of keep that out so the little shiny distraction of a new email coming through doesn't distract me as often.
And are you utilizing quick steps, that function?
All the time, yeah. I love those.
What are some examples of that, of your quick steps?
I have a few set up where, especially for pipelining, if it's a candidate who's not related to a specific job I'm working, I have a few folders based off of their job kind of title. If they're project managers, if they're more of a Salesforce developer, I can group via kind of breaking them off into the more pipeline side of things. So if then maybe I do get a rec come in the Salesforce developers, I can jump into that folder and go through people I've just recently emailed on that, or kind of if I'm looking to kind of keep in touch with people, I can break it up that way as well.
I'm fascinated by the quick steps. I think I'm still an amateur at it, where I'm just using send and archive, and that's my example of a quick step. Just trying to figure out ways to do it. And this is sort of what I was asking you, Chris, around the follow-up, like where you send somebody an email, so you've sort of taken care of your task. I may need to follow up with them because they didn't respond, right? Let's just say I'm trying to set an on-site interview with the manager. I sent him an email 2 days ago. He hasn't responded yet, or she hasn't responded yet. How do I know to follow up with that person? So
I think for me, that's where my color-coded category would come in. If I'm waiting on something from them, I'm probably going to leave that in my general inbox and have that color tagged as a certain thing, because you can search just by categories. So if you know you're waiting on someone else, you can have, everything waiting on manager response to be the blue color, or if it's a candidate response, it can be green. And you can kind of check those once or twice a day, make sure, is this something that I need to follow up on right now, and kind of keep an eye on those things and take the color off as soon as they have responded.
Are you manually assigning your color category? Is that involved in your rules or a quick step?
It's manual, just because I want to make sure I'm clicking into the right color code on that one, I guess.
Got it. There's a tool. So like my Outlook, I use a CRM, so it connects coincidentally to Salesforce. So I manage all my engagement in my CRM long-term. There's a tool I use called Cirrus Insight, which connects my Outlook. It's kind of like a visual. I can see the window too. So I can see your email and I can see your CRM record, and I can sort of update without jumping into Salesforce. But this tool, I think it's the tool that does it, where we'll say, hey, you email this person, there's been no correspondence back, and it kind of gives me a heads up. Do you want to reach out to them again? I think that's what the window is powered by. But I'm hoping that. What's that?
That sounds like a wonderful tool. I love that.
Yeah, because that's, to me, it's like
Google uses that in my non-professional. The regular Gmail does that nudging, has a nudging tool.
That's what it is. It is not Cirrus. It is, I can't remember who or what did that, but yeah, the nudging. That, I love that piece of it. Oh yeah, even if I say no, I'm good. But that little digital assistant, I'm still hoping some startup with AI, whatever that turns out to be, figures out, hey, this is what Sean's thinking and this is what he needs to do. Let me ping him in some way. Okay, Samantha, one question. Your signatures, you're using those for kind of like block text? So it's outside of just the email signature, using it to insert text, right?
Yeah, I have emails I send a lot. Let's say follow up with a candidate. I always ask for professional references, kind of their full name for any certifications they have, whatnot. So I have an email signature in there fully typed out, hey, it's blank, all of the information that I always ask for instead of copying and pasting. I think the other thing you can do, I think there's like there's something else that you can use as well. I've always found signatures to be easier, and I've never lost my signatures where I lost the quick copy text or whatever. And so I have a number of different ones that have my signature, but the full body of the email saved in
Do you
there.
toggle in between signature A, signature B, and signature C really quickly?
I mean, I guess it kind of depends. I don't know if I understand what you mean by that.
So if you're responding to a candidate or responding to your manager, and so it requires different signatures that has different bodies in it, right? How do you select which signature you want to use?
It just comes up in Outlook when I'm responding. I'll just click insert signature, and I have them all named follow-up candidate or,
Okay.
Job spec taken or whatnot, and they're all named in there. So if I open a new email, my regular signature is automatically loaded in there because the new email could be anything, but then I click in and decide which signature I'm going to use.
So where is that click in? Maybe that's what my question is. Where's that click in?
It's in the
I'll open
ribbon.
it right now and let you know.
Thank you.
It's
Because
up in the top
I like
ribbon.
that. I like that. It's on the top ribbon somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. So on mine, we just got Office 365, and now it says include, and it would have attach item that's a file, something, or a signature, and then all of my options pop up on there.
Cool.
And you also have to be in an open email, right? It's
Yeah.
not, yeah. It's a piece.
Correct. You do have to hit reply or new email, and then your signature option comes up. It's not straight from the inbox.
Does
Okay, that's cool.
Does Gmail have signatures?
Yes. I did the both. I use that a lot in Google, and I also use it a lot in my Outlook. Same thing. Hey, candidate, thanks for replying. I'd love to set up an interview. Give me your 3 best times. And I just, that's good. I can just quick send that out, and I don't have to type anything. I have probably 4 or 5 signatures set up, same thing. And you just pick the one that you need for that particular email.
Yeah,
I just saw quick parts is the word I was looking for. Someone in the chat said, how is that different? That is what I was looking for. I, however, have lost quick parts that didn't save. I've never lost my email signatures from being saved, and that's why I've decided to stick with signatures to answer the chat question.
Can you elaborate on what Quick Parts is? I don't know if I've heard of that.
It's something that one of my colleagues used. She kind of uses it the same way I use my signature. It's basically a copied text that you can just insert in. It's just not the full body of the email. It's somewhat similar. I just had an issue with them not saving very well. Easily could have been RIT, and I've stuck with signatures since then.
And that's an add-on to Outlook?
No, it's in Outlook, I think, when you're replying. I think for me, it also added 2 extra steps. I had to click into like attach. It added more clicks that I had to do to get to quick parts compared to a signature.
Yeah, so I use a combination of signatures, and then for years, I've used a gamer keyboard. Logitech makes them, Best Buy sells them, Amazon. And you have these little keypads, right? You macros. So with the Logitech software that comes with the keyboard, you can insert text blocks with a button. So I still use my signatures, but for my short, quick messaging, I do use my little macro to insert text. And reason why I have them on my keyboard is if I go to LinkedIn, where they have templates when you're sending for the first time, but there's no real signature that I know of. There's no real signature capability in LinkedIn Recruiter. So even when I go into LinkedIn, I use my little click this button to say X, right?
There should be signature abilities in LinkedIn Recruiter.
There are?
Yeah.
Am I the only one who doesn't know this? Where do you see those? Or maybe I might follow up with you on that one.
Follow up with me. It should be there. When you open up an InMail, on the bottom there, you can put your signature in and click save, and then it'll be there forever.
And can you have multiple signatures?
That I don't think so. You could edit it. You could edit it to have it say whatever you want it to say that one time, but there will be a standard.
Yeah. Okay. So I know what you're talking about on that piece. I was just looking for the ability to choose multiple ones. I'll just type it rather than edit that one. All right. Is there anybody who does not use their signatures?
I don't use them the way Samantha does, but I really like it, so I'm going to have to take a look into this.
I was thinking the same thing. I like that as well, so I'm going to have to look into see how that works with Google Mail and see if that is something I can put in. I like the colors too.
Yeah. All right, Jonathan, let's jump over to you.
Hey, quick background. Nice to meet everybody here. I was on the agency side. I've been recruiting for about 11 years. Was on the agency side for 10 of those years. We did full-time permanent placements in the digital media marketing tech space. I then worked for the Home Depot as a contractor for about a year and a half. As my contract was up, I found Assurance America, and I've been there for the last 2-3 months. So it's been very weird onboarding remotely, starting remotely, meeting everybody remotely. But that's, that's the hand that we've been dealt here. So, but I'm happy to be home and be safe doing it. And that's my quick background. So agency side and in-house side. My method is very similar to Chris, very similar to Chris. I view my inbox as from a sense of urgency perspective. And I have a little bit more of a no frills kind of, I guess, filing system, if you will, because I found that there's really two main problems with having some sort of elaborate folder system. First of all, emails with action items tend to be buried under massive amounts of other inbox items. So that's why everything should be filtered into your inbox. And then to combat the above problem, what people tend to do is obviously create these elaborate folder filing systems or a set of rules or both. And that causes people to think too much about which folder would be the best place for an email to fit in. And I think that could waste valuable time. For instance, you've got one hiring manager, or maybe it's a dual reporting structure. So which folder does it go in? Does it go into both? Does it go into this one? Does it go into that one? The moment you have to start thinking about things like that, the moment you're wasting too much time, at least in my opinion. And also, file the way emails tend to get forgotten, especially if they need to be acted upon again. So what my system is very simple. I have 3 folders. I've got the inbox, I've got an archive, and I got a trash, like I said earlier. Everything comes into the inbox, period, end of story, whether it's a industry trade letter or something very important from your CEO or boss or whatever, it doesn't matter, from a candidate. It all goes into your inbox so you see it. Then once it's acted upon, then it goes either into archived or into trash. Now, things that go into trash are going to be the memes that you get from your coworkers, right? Anything like that. And I'm guilty of sending out a lot of memes. I like memes, but that goes into the trash bin. Everything else pretty much gets archived. And from what I could tell, you're either an Outlook environment, Microsoft ecosystem, or a Google ecosystem when it comes to work emails. The search capabilities in those environments, those ecosystems, are very good. So you could search an archive folder that houses everything, and you can find it if you're searching, using keywords. At least that's what I found that works best for me. And this worked on the agency side, and it works on the in-house side as well. So that's kind of what it works. That kind of what works for me. Now, the question I didn't address is, how do you move something from your inbox to archived? I mean, what is the trigger? How do you triage that inbox and figure out what's important, what's not important? The short answer is, and this is not going to be very fulfilling kind of an answer, is that it depends, right? It depends on situation to situation, time to time, boss to boss, company to company. It just really depends on how you need to triage your inbox, and really only you, the recruiter, can make that decision. But I tend to, the way I tend to triage in general, is just a general thing, is that things that are the most time pressing obviously get the most precedent, and you just kind of go down from there. So if there's an offer letter going out, that's going to get a lot more press than even if my CEO calls me, or not calls me, obviously emails me, right? For a question or about something, because I got to get that offer letter out, that kind of thing. So that's kind of how I triage, if you will. But it's basically a no frills, inbox zero method, if you will.
So when we talk about triaging,
Yeah.
so I work for many years now in recruiting operations. So I do a lot of supporting the recruiters and the tech issues. So I kind of treat my email like a ticketing system, which is a lot like trying to fill recs, but I use it for that action item and to-do list also. And this goes for the panel. So that's our inbox, and engaging with managers and candidates that way. Do any of you have to deal with utilizing another system, like say Slack, or even if you're using messaging, like a instant messenger, about well, now all of a sudden it's like there's 3 funnels that I got to triage and try and sync it all up and you deal with that at all?
I'll give you my quick answer real quick. My answer is I pretty much ask that people funnel everything into email for me. If it's an action item, if it comes to me via voicemail, Slack, or anything like that, it's not going to get done. It's got to be an email because I got to know about it and I got to be able to see it in email for it to be acted upon. So if you ever call me and leave a voicemail, my voicemail will say, don't leave a message, email me. And I put on auto replies on Slack as well to that same effect. I'm happy to chat with people, but if you want me to do something, got to email me. I even tell my wife to email me.
How about, and I sort of follow the same premise. I don't get away with the, hey, you can't leave a voicemail position on there. But how do anybody else, do you have to deal with like these multiple channels of information coming in?
Yeah, we use Jabber, so we have an external messaging. It's not tied to our Outlook. Our ATS is also not integrated, so I have information coming from everywhere. And so I use my inbox similarly to Chris and Jonathan. It is somewhat my to-do list, but I also integrate it with OneNote, and I use OneNote like that is what saves me in terms of organization. So I have a team that I manage, and then I have my own set of recruiting that I have to do as well. So everything goes into OneNote. And in the folders, I have a follow-up area. So if it's still in my inbox, I know it's something that I have to move, but it'll all go into my OneNote. And then that is really integrated pretty nicely. I can still use the other tools that I need, like Excel. We're on Office 365, so I can take stuff from my OneNote and put it out onto into a shared document for people to use, and then it can go back into my OneNote. But I religiously use my OneNote because I also don't like to delete things. That's a terrible thing, but I like to keep my things. So what I found is that I can put them in OneNote and then I don't lose them. But what it's forced me to do is I have a tab for my recruiting notebook. So by rec, and then I have a for follow-up, and then, I have other pages within my OneNote, but that's really helped me keep organized. And then I move it out of there once I'm done. So at least I know it's not still in the follow-up. But there's a lot of LinkedIn learning tools that people have not, if you have that available through your firm. So like whether you're a Microsoft or a Google platform, I know there are a lot of tools out there that you can do that can help you figure out how to integrate things better. And it's helped me tremendously, but I live by my OneNote, and it's helped me really stay pretty well organized, better than I would expect.
Now, Sharon, I think I may have stepped on your item. Is that what you're going to be highlighting is the OneNote?
Yep.
Okay.
So, that's okay.
All right, let me keep rolling with that.
Okay.
The rest of your team. So I was, the last company I was at, there were people that really used OneNote really well. I was quite jealous of them and how well and organized and structured it was. I kind of tried to get there. I never quite got there.
Yeah.
And then you would see how the VP of recruiting used it. She just was perfect at it. It's beautiful. And then some people sort of follow in suit. Is the rest of your team all using OneNote? Is it kind of, hey, if you want to, you can?
We are moving towards everybody using it more consistently. For my team, I want people to do what works for them. So I have a really high performer on my team who does not use it, and that's okay. I mean, I wouldn't want her to use something that is going to impede her being able to do her work. But I still have asked her to do the OneNote training so that it's something that she can figure out maybe how she could integrate it into her workday. Because there are a lot of things that I think would help her automate what she does in her day-to-day. So it's not a required yet, but it's a recommended, and at least take the time to learn how to use it. And we all use it at different levels. I have people on my team that use it way better than I do. And so I'm still trying to figure out how I can use it better. And I do take time, so I was in staffing for a long time, and then I switched to internal. So I'm at RSM, or a public accounting firm. So it's a very different kind of mentality. And we schedule everything on our calendars, and so my calendar and my inbox are all integrated. But I also make sure I set aside time, and I do it once a month. So I'll go through and I'll take an hour, usually while I'm eating lunch. I'll just do it over lunch, and I'll get rid of things in my inbox that I maybe have overlooked or haven't gotten rid of. And then I'll also go through and do the same thing in some of my follow-up items in my OneNote, just to make sure that there's nothing that I haven't missed, but more so important in my inbox. I will go through and do just a review on a monthly basis and make sure that I've gotten stuff out of there just to keep it from being cluttered. And I still do keep, every day I do my to-do list, I write it down. I'm trying to go completely virtual and use my OneNote for that. I'm not quite there, but I have like my high level items that I know I have to get done, but then I can go back into my OneNote or into my inbox and go back to those items so I can get stuff done.
No, I met a few recruiters who said they would not work at a company that used Workday Recruit because they disliked that so much. Would you think twice about working in a company that was on Gmail and therefore say didn't have access to OneNote in that tight way?
No, because I worked in staffing for a long time and we were Gmail for that whole time. And so we used Google Drive a lot. And so we shared a lot of documents and had team folders. There were some things that are even newer that we didn't have, but we used probably our Google Drive in a somewhat similar way to how we use OneNote. OneNote is I think much more functional, but you could still do the same thing like using Google Drive to help keep your team organized. We did a lot of sharing and had a lot of documents there that we would use as a team.
Do you share your OneDrive with hiring managers or just within your recruiting team?
So yes, if I have a couple hiring managers that wanted to be involved in the recruiting process from A to Z. And so I probably have 7 notebooks now at this point in time. And so I do have notebooks that were created specifically for a high profile rec that I could share with the hiring manager. So it has like a PowerPoint page for tracking and then candidate pages in there. So yes, you can. I have some that I share with hiring managers. Usually I just will share a sheet in like a tracking sheet on Office 365. That's generally all that I'll share.
Got it. How about the rest of the panel? Is anyone else using OneNote in any way? Yeah, you're few and far between, Sharon.
I'm a convert though. I'm a new convert and I love it.
I think it's a great tool. And Jonathan, are you a GTD guy? Getting things done? Do you know what that is?
I try to be. I don't know.
Okay. Is everybody else aware what GTD is?
I don't know what it is.
Oh, it's kind of follows what you're thinking. It's a whole little subculture of time management. It's GTD, getting things done. There's a book on it. I can't remember the author. He has there's a whole little subculture of GTD people, and it follows that suit of archiving and do it now if it's less than 2 minutes, assign if it's not, and then come back and stuff like that.
Eat That Frog kind of a thing. I don't know if you've read that book before.
Yeah, kind of like that. The Mark Twain philosophy. But to the book, yeah.
I'm not a power user. I try to do it, but just on my own.
Got it. Does anybody use like a Calendly or any type of add-on into their email system to help with that piece of it, Samantha?
I love Calendly. Love it. I only tend to use it on the candidate side of things. I do 360. I work with both clients and candidates, and I tend to use it for scheduling calls with candidates, but I find it, I link that in my LinkedIn recruiter InMails, and I think it's really time saving. Instead of saying, I can talk at this time and this time, 100% chance that changes by the time they respond to my InMail anyway. And I just find it makes my life so much easier and easier for them too. They can pick whenever works for them. And I have it pretty customized to exactly when I want to talk to people, when will work. And then I just block things on my calendar. If I, want to make sure I have an hour of productive time in a day that has a lot of calls, I'll just throw something on there and make sure it's not open for a Calendly slot or something, but I love it.
Yeah, I used it a lot when I was in staffing too. I used it all the time. It's helpful.
And we're implementing something called Time Trade, which does the same thing. Just gives those candidates that opportunity to go into your calendar and schedule what's available.
Yeah, there's a tool now that I think some ATSs are starting to white label. We were talking about it in a previous session. Can't remember the name of it, but it's the same concept, but team-wise. So it gets assigned to the RAC, the candidates, and the hiring team kind of instantly share their calendar in there. So it's great for scheduling like on-site group hiring. If anybody's in the chat knows what tool I'm talking about, please add it in there. And thanks to Elizabeth, the GTD is David Allen. That's who the guy is. I can remember his name. But yeah, that's sort of my little item to bring to the table is really looking at the add-ons. So I use a combination of Calendly and Zoom. So does everybody use kind of like a Zoom or a type of video conferencing inside their email? I think to combine those both, it's just to Samantha's point, it's just a time saver. You can pick from it, whether I'm getting sent the emails or I'm sending them out. And then that the Cirrus Insight, if at all possible, if you do use a CRM or just connecting to your ATSs, I think it's kind of hit or miss with ATSs, whether they connect to your Outlook or Gmail. I think most vendors will be getting there. That kind of leads me to a question. Does anybody do the majority, at least, of their emailing or messaging inside their ATS, or is it all Gmail or Outlook?
I used to when we worked with Bullhorn, because that's a really fluid system that works with your email and just plugs it straight through the ATS, but not so much anymore.
Same. My old firm, we used Bullhorn, which was great. I loved it. Now, no, all through Outlook.
Yeah, we don't, we're actually in early stages of implementing an ATS for the first time at my new company. So we're not even there yet. My old company, we used PeopleFluent at Home Depot, which is ancient, and we did not integrate with Outlook. And I used another old ATS system at the agency that also did not integrate with Outlook very well. So for me, it's a no.
Samantha?
We're Salesforce and Outlook, so we don't even really have specifically an ATS, but we use Salesforce as CRM plus kind of one.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, as a career as a consultant, customizing Salesforce for corporate sourcing teams, not for agencies, but for in-house sourcing teams.
Yeah,
it's a great little tool if you do outbound recruiting. I did have a question. I won't get back to it. I'll probably email. It was one of the topics that got brought into it. Before we jump here, I know we're going a little bit past, along with the whole GTD concept, has anybody ever heard of Inbox Zero? So Chris, that kind of sounds like what you're doing. There's another philosophy around time management called Inbox Zero. I encourage everybody to take a look at that. And that is to kind of get your inbox to zero by triaging it out. I think what everybody's doing. So it's along those lines of GTD, but it's that, I can't remember this comes from back in the day, all these people, when I used to work in Silicon Valley, all this stuff was sort of on my radar. So it's one of those people who would bite onto anything.
It makes me so happy when I get under 10, I'm telling you.
Yeah, a little rush.
Yeah, I'm like, woo.
Yeah. Excellent. All right. We've gone past our half hour. Okay, good conversation. I appreciate everybody staying on. Do we have any last comments or sort of last minute sort of secret tips that we want to throw in there? Are we all kind of like just keeping our head above water for the most part, each place we go to?
Yes.
Definitely feels that way some days.
Yeah, and I don't blame the users. As an operations guy, it's all about looking at tools and stuff. It's just like trying to find that tool. And if you cannot sync, that's the first thing to make sure you get done if you're at a company, is to sync the email to the ATS. It's so problematic when they're not, because I do a lot of reporting. So I ask recruiters, hey, can you update the ATS? Yeah, I'll get to it when I get to it, because they're engaging everything in their email. And when they get over to the ATS, it's kind of like when you're moving forward for an on-site interview or offer, but everything a little in between, it's sitting in their emails. It's kind of like lost information, in my opinion. So that would be the number one thing I'd recommend to everybody. Try as best you can to get that ATS that syncs to your email at least. All right. We all good? Anything else?
No.
All right. Well, thanks for coming in and having this conversation. It's one of those where we're all trying to figure it out. And I think everybody has their own little style and gets the job done, but it sure would be nice to have, if there is that smoother way out there. I think we're all looking for that holy grail in mail management.
For sure.
All right. So enjoy your short week, everybody. Stay safe.
Thank you. You do the same. Take care, all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.